Hello, 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 my favorite students. Hope you guys are all doing well. Man, you guys are lighting me up with these help topics. This is the best group I've ever had for responses, so I thank you for that. But it does make more work for me, but that's okay. I'm here for you, okay? So keep them coming. As long as I'm helping you, I'll keep doing it, okay? Um, and I got the Halloween background for you because it's that month, right? So that's cool, right? Um, anyways, lot of topics here. Some I've already covered before, some not so much. So we'll try to get some information out to you guys. Um, excuse me. And I got this cough that won't stop. And if you stay to the end of the video, I got a neat little surprise for you. You're not gonna believe what I got into. You're not gonna believe this. All right, it's pretty cool. All right, it's not that cool, but it's a little bit cool. Okay. Anyways, um, let's talk about. Well, let me deal with the elephant in the room. Okay, a bunch of people wanted information on Christopher Columbus and Columbus Day, and there's so much historical information, but everybody wants to judge him, and I don't want to get in that fight. I really don't. I believe everybody is flawed and nobody's perfect. Because of what I believe religiously, I think there was only one perfect man ever, and you don't have to believe that or anything. And I really don't want to get into that. Okay, so but I don't believe there's any perfect people. I think Columbus was a great explorer and was a very brave and courageous person, but either he or his men or both were involved with some bad things with some native peoples in North America. And so I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I really don't want to get into that. Okay, so there's plenty of videos to watch on that of pro Columbus stuff, anti Columbus stuff. The guy did some great things. The guy maybe did some horrible things. I don't know what else to say on that. He was a human being, and I really don't know what to do with that. Okay. I just know most of us wouldn't be sitting here right now if he had not made that voyage when he did. And things might be a lot different. But I'm not saying he's an amazing guy or anything. Okay. So I don't know what to tell you guys on that one. So let's move on, please. Okay. First thing, let's talk about physical and chemical changes. Alyssa had this concept that she requested help on, and I think this is a great one because it comes up in most of our science classes at some time. So physical and chemical changes. I'm going to try to share a screen. I'm using a different program. Maybe it'll work this week. Let's hope, huh? So share. Okay, it looks like we're doing good. Now I just got to move all the stuff out of the way. Get this out of the way. Okay. And let's see. Nope, that's not it. Got a lot of neat stuff to talk about, as you can see. Okay. Trying to find the physical chemical changes page. Here we go. Okay, so let's define these things first, and then we can talk about examples of differences of each one, okay? A physical change alters the appearance or state of a substance without changing its chemical identity, while a chemical change creates an actual new substance with different properties by rearranging atoms through a chemical reaction. Essentially, in a physical change, the substance remains the same, while in a chemical change, the new substance is formed. That's the key takeaway here. Let's get some examples, okay? Examples of physical change. Boiling water. So you put water in a pan and you boil it, and what is it when it turns into vapor? It's still water. So that's just a physical change, okay? Cutting paper, crushing a can, dissolving sugar in water. These are not leading to new substances. Now, if you burn wood, that does. Rusting iron, that does. Cooking food, that does. Milk spoiling, that will. Okay, so these are examples of chemical changes. You're actually creating new substances. So that's the key difference. So there's some great examples there. And of course, if you need more information, there's about a bazillion videos on YouTube but they'll take longer to explain it. Okay, let's move on. Next one is federal agencies. Grace wanted to know more about those. Now, here's the thing. Um, I can't talk about all the federal agencies. That would take days. Okay, that you wouldn't want to watch that video. All right, because there's so many. There's thousands. I'm not kidding. There's thousands. Okay, um, but what I will tell you as a brief overview is when our Constitution was first set up as the governing document of America, there were no agencies and there was no foreseen need for those agencies. Um, and I'm not trying to judge here, but in the early 1900s, late 1800s was when these agencies really start popping up. And they were thought to actually be beneficial for our nation by the people that set them up, but they were also used as a roundabout way of bypassing our Constitution. Because normally, what you would have to do is elect an official to our Congress, and you could get laws changed or laws passed that you want. But FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, and Woodrow Wilson, and even Teddy Roosevelt, all the way back in the early 1900s, discovered that if you can't get that done, a couple of ways you can go around our Constitution, probably illegally or in an unconstitutional way, but works is to either get judges to change laws or throw laws out, and there's plenty of examples of that, or to set up an agency to kind of autopilot manage something and basically use agency policy as de facto law. And so that's been a huge practice by both political parties at times. The Democrats definitely historically, that's been more of their go-to, but the progressive Republicans in the early 1900s, like Teddy Roosevelt, also utilized agencies in a big way. And they created hundreds, and over time, we have thousands of them now that manage all kinds of things, and nobody ever gets to vote on who runs them or what kind of policies they have. They're just on autopilot by the government. And I think most historians would agree that's very unconstitutional, but that's where we are, and that's what we have. And I don't know if that'll change anytime soon. So, just as an overview, that's kind of how those have been used as a tool to, whether you think it's good or bad, to go around our Constitution and have policies change without actually following the Constitution and having laws change. Now, when you have that project where you got to go pick an agency and research it and talk about it, the main thing I see that's a problem is students don't cover both sides. They just say, oh, the FDA is really good. It does all this stuff and saves us from dying from bad food. Well, they've also approved a lot of bad medicines throughout our history. There's been a lot of weird vaccine campaigns happen in the last 100 years, 150 years that have done horrible things to people that the FDA was probably involved in and maybe even funded at times. The whole COVID situation, the FDA was hugely involved for probably good and bad. Anyways, my point is that they don't always do good things, and you need to cover both sides when you do that project, okay? As with most of your writing assignments as well. Okay, so let's move on from the agencies. Fascinating topic. Could talk about it for days. We don't need to do that, okay? A lot of people are asking about the election of George Washington. Why is George Washington getting cool again? I think that's awesome because this guy actually did a lot of amazing things. If they turn, I always said, if they turned his life into a movie, like his life story, that would be one of the greatest movies ever written. It is amazing what he went through. And again, not a perfect man, but I think really did a lot of good for the world and our country overall. Um, and what's really cool is, excuse me, I've already made a video just about him because I've taken a few classes just about him because there's so much to cover there. And so I'm going to send that video out to you guys. And like I always do, it will have an extra credit assignment attached to it. Just send me your notes or whatever, answer questions. I can't remember which one it is. and I'll give you extra credit for watching that video. And his life is really interesting, actually. So I think you'll really enjoy that, and you'll learn a lot too. And you'll learn a lot about the false things said about him, the myths about him, and some of the true things about him. So I will send that out to you in a separate email because that takes a long time to talk about. But thank you, Nelson and Cooper, for suggesting George Washington. I think there might have been others too. Great idea. Big topic. I'll send you a video. Okay, moving on. We had a couple students ask about fiscal policy. That was Chloe was the first one. So fiscal policy, let me share a screen with you. Okay, let's go to fiscal policy. Okay, excuse me. This is defined as the use of government spending and tax policies to influence economic conditions, especially macroeconomic conditions. So here's a great website, Investopedia.com. You can look up fiscal policy to tell you a lot more about it. I'm not going to cover everything with this because, again, that would probably take a whole day. But let's just look at some examples real quick, okay? Fiscal policy refers to the use of government spending and tax policies to influence economic conditions, especially macroeconomic conditions or big picture conditions. These include aggregate demand for goods and services, employment, inflation, and economic growth. During a recession, the government may lower taxes or increase spending to encourage demand and spur economic activity. Conversely, to combat inflation, it may raise rates, interest rates on loans, or cut spending to cool down the economy. So what I always say jokingly is fiscal policy is what the government uses, the tools it uses to screw up the economy. And the main one you could talk about is the National Bank, okay, that we originally had, and the whole banking system we have where the government prints out money, sends it to the banks, and basically tells them the rate on to loan that money out. There was huge fights among our founding fathers about whether we should even have such a thing, the Fed they call it, or should that be illegal? And it was some pretty bad fights about that. I'm of the mind I wish we didn't have that and let the free market determine these things, because the more the government dabbles, the more it seems to screw these things up. For instance, right now we're in a high inflationary rate time. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Well, our government since COVID, so it's the last two presidents at least, and I'll give you another statistic in a second. Anyways, we've printed out trillions of dollars. I'll say that again. We've printed out trillions of dollars. Why can't you do that, Mr. Crane? Well, the more dollars you print out, the less value they hold. And this has been tried a few times before. Zimbabwe destroyed their economy in the 60s. They had to have trillion-dollar bills because they'd printed out so much money to pay debt. And it breaks the economy. It destroys your currency. You have to take a wheelbarrow to go buy a glass of water. The Weimar Republic, right before it became Germany under Hitler again, had a nice republic, kept printing out money to pay off the debt from World War I because they got blamed for it all, and ran up the debt so bad and printed out so much money that they had wheelbarrows and wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread, and they used it for toilet paper and starting fires because the money was so worthless. And that's called hyperinflation when it gets out of control. And we are right on the road to achieving that someday in the near future. So that's great for you guys to hear at your age, I'm sure. It's like we're trying to catch those other countries and to see if we can destroy our economy just as bad. And both political parties are guilty of it, so I'm not being political here. There was a stat out a while back that if you go from George Washington to President George Bush, our government spent so much money and was so much in debt, and since then we've like tripled that. In just 20 years, we've tripled the entire spending of our whole country for like 200 years, which is not sustainable and will not work and will destroy our currency at some point. So that's our government using fiscal policy to try to make your life better. But yeah, that's what they do. They print out a lot of money to try to stimulate the economy, and then they raise interest rates to try to slow down the economy, which is what we've done since COVID because inflation got so high. Because we were spending like crazy. We printed out trillions of dollars to support everybody during COVID. And it wasn't just COVID, that's just when it started getting really bad. It's been going on, like I said, for 20 years. And yeah, so that's how the government tries to manipulate the economy using certain tools. This was huge right before World War II during the Great Depression, too. If you read about President FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, he used a lot of these tools and actually invented a lot of these tools. I shouldn't say invented. For the first time, utilized a lot of these tools to try to stimulate the economy and fix prices, fix wages, a lot of things that communist countries do. They usually don't work very well. And guess what? They didn't work very well. Anyways, it's been tried and tried over and over, and usually the government just ends up screwing everything up really bad. Just my opinion, but you can go read about it. But that's fiscal policy, is how the government tries to manipulate the economy using certain tools like raising interest rates, printing money, spending money, and there's more here. John Maynard Keynes was one of the first economists that was big on this, and he told FDR to basically keep spending money, spending money, spending money. And Henry Morgenthau, FDR's Secretary of the Treasury, came back and said, "We spent all this money and we have nothing to show to it. Maybe we should quit doing that." And they did eventually after FDR passes away. And then the economy started improving right about the time of World War II. And so a lot of people say it's because of World War II that saved us. Actually, it's probably because they stopped the New Deal programs and stopped the spending and stopped the printing of money. And yeah, I think data definitely points more that way. Anyways, these are historical examples of fiscal policy. Okay, so let me check that one off. Good job, Chloe, for finding something I can't shut up about and probably bored you guys to death talking about. All right. Manoia wanted to hear about exploration. Again, this would take all day to talk about, and I'm not going to do that. But am I still sharing? Here, let me share again. But here's a timeline, Age of Exploration timeline, if you want to look at this. It's basic. There's a lot more you could put on there, but these are a lot of the big name guys. Prince Henry from Portugal starts exploring in the 1400s. They start getting into all over Africa, later on South America. Some more famous explorers. Excuse me. We get to Magellan. Yeah, so here's some cool explorers. Not saying they were always great people or anything. I'm just saying they're really good explorers. Here's a summation of what they did. I'm not going to read this to you, but you can always pause this video and read this if you're into this. Okay, but there's a lot. Magellan was the first one to go all the way around the earth, and actually he died along the way. I think he got shot in the Philippines. But yeah, there's some really cool exploration tidbits and some of the famous explorers. And I know it looks like a third grade project and we won't talk about that. But anyways, I got you something, okay? So there's that. So I'm going to cross that one off. Again, we could talk about that all day and we just don't have time. But thanks for bringing that up, Manoia. What a great topic. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Man, you guys had a lot of good stuff. Oh, Alyssa, trying to get me in trouble, huh? U.S. immigration law. She wants to know about U.S. immigration law. And no matter what I say, it'll make somebody mad, depending on their political party. So, that's always fun, right? But let's see what we can figure out here. Don't need that. We got physical and chemical changes. Christopher Columbus, no. Let's see. I had something here. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to say too much on this because, like I said, somebody will get mad. Somebody's parents will get mad. Somebody's teacher will get mad. and I'm not even trying to go into the whole political side of this, um, because somebody will get mad. But are there laws that say it's illegal to enter the United States like secretly, like sneak across the border? Yes, there are. And honestly, I think every country on earth has laws that make that illegal. Okay? So these are just facts. I'm not making any political statement, but here they are. Okay? It says Title 8 of the U.S. Code identifies federal criminal offenses pertaining to immigration and nationality, including the following two entry related offenses. Illegal entry, blah, 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 1325 makes it a crime to unlawfully enter the United States. It applies to people who do not enter with proper inspection at a port of entry, such as those who enter between ports of entry, avoid examination or inspection, or who make false statements while entering or attempting to enter. A first offense is a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine up to 6 months in prison or both. So, I'm not I'm not trying to judge here or anything like that, but a person that comes in the United States without going through a port of entry is committing a crime. If they keep doing it, it becomes a higher crime, because illegal entry USC blah 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 1326 makes it a crime to unlawfully re-enter, attempt to unlawfully re-enter, or to be found in the United States after having been deported, ordered removed, or denied admission. This crime is punishable as a felony, with a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison. Higher penalties apply if the person was previously removed after having been convicted of certain crimes. Up to 10 years for a single felony conviction or 3 misdemeanor convictions involving drugs or crimes against a person, and up to 20 years for aggravated felony conviction. So, yes, it is a crime to come across our border unannounced. It is a bigger crime to keep doing that. So it goes from a misdemeanor to a felony. Okay? So, again, I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. Be honest with you guys. People on the news, they argue about like what terms to use and what's offensive or not. And sometimes people that come across illegally are referred to as illegal aliens or illegal immigrants. It actually is illegal if they're doing it that way. Okay, they're breaking these laws. To be honest, if I were them, I would probably still do the same thing. Just being honest. The one complaint you hear a lot is when people come across illegally, it's like they're cutting in line in front of people that have applied to come here legally and become citizens. And so they are cutting the line. Economically, there's a big fight about this. There's pros and cons when immigrants come to our country. They buy stuff, they start businesses. Eventually, hopefully, they pay taxes and things, so they can be a big benefit. At first, they're usually, I don't want to say harmful, but a drag on the economy because they use services like welfare programs, food stamps, things like that, because most other nations are much poorer than the United States. They go to our schools and need resources there. They use our hospitals and need resources there. They don't always pay their bills because they can't. And so everybody else ends up paying for all of that at times. And so it can really be a drag on our economy. Everybody that's not native to this area came one way or another. And, eventually people do assimilate and pay taxes and things and can be beneficial, but it can be very rough on small communities when large numbers of people come in. I've seen that in Texas and New Mexico. Again, I'm not saying anybody's bad people or anything. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it too. I'm just saying that there's pros and cons as with anything. Again, I think we need to help people, but you know, when there's only so much help to go around, though. Okay, especially when our country is 30 trillion in debt right now, and we're in deep trouble, guys, on a lot of fronts, okay? So, anyways, there's the laws on that. Yes, it is a crime. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question on that. I forgot who asked that question. Anyways, oh, Alyssa, yeah. So, great topic. Immigration law is fascinating. Um, a lot of people also argue with the 14th Amendment. I'll just bring this up because it applies to our U.S. history and government students. Um, that law was meant to apply to former slaves, basically making them citizens. And today people try to argue that the language is for, let's say, illegal immigrants that come from other countries and then have a baby here, and that makes them citizens. Um, Legal scholars I've talked to said there's no way that works. The 14th Amendment is not for immigrants, it was for former slaves, and it should not be used to argue for citizenship for illegal immigrants that come here and have what they call an anchor baby. They have kids here. I'm not trying to be insulting or mean about this or judge anybody. I'm just telling you from talking to legal scholars, because I know a couple, that's what they've said. And when I read that 14th Amendment and see how it was passed and the context of the law, that should not be applied for immigrants. Okay, that was for former slaves. So you don't have to agree with me, but that's my understanding. Okay, so there, and now you know a little bit more about the 14th Amendment. Okay, let's move on. Somebody wanted to know about Malthusian theory. I think it was Kylie. So let's look at that. I'm just going to give you this video because it's really entertaining and really good, but I wanted to show you one of his graphics real quick. Malthusian theory is based off this guy, Thomas Malthus. Am I sharing? I am. Yay. And I'll just let you know he was wrong on a lot of stuff, okay? But basically, I want to show you this chart that he had, and then I'll explain it basically, and then you can watch this video. I'll post a link to it because it's really good. But yeah, he said that as, no, this ain't it. And I'm sorry, guys. I should have had this. Here we go. Okay. He said as population goes up and the food supply stays steady, eventually we're all going to starve to death because we have too many people on Earth. So what we need to do is depopulate. And this is a huge argument used by climate change. I'll call them alarmists, people that believe we're all going to die any day now because of climate change and things like that. Even though they've been wrong in their predictions for the last 50 years, I'm not saying they'll always be wrong. I'm just saying. Anyways, I don't want to get in trouble. But this guy said we have to depopulate the earth. We have to not have so many people because we're all going to die and run out of food. And this was where he was wrong. What they actually found was as you have more people, the food supply goes up because, well, for one, you have market demand and you can make a lot more money off food as more people need food. And also through technological advances, we can grow way more food than we actually need. And in Thomas Malthus's time, they didn't see that coming. Okay, so his theory's pretty much been nuked. Not to say we shouldn't worry about these things, and not to say that maybe there'll be other factors and this applies maybe. I don't see it, but it's fascinating, and there's still a lot of people that support his mindset today. And again, I'm not judging, I'm just letting you know, okay? That a lot of the people worried about climate change being caused by man will agree with his conclusion, even though it's for different reasons, okay? So this is Malthusian theory, and I'll include this video for you if you want to watch it. It is really entertaining. This guy does a great job, okay? So there's that one. Okay, French Revolution. This one is for Sid. Sid always has really good stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to cover the whole history of the French Revolution. There's tons of videos on YouTube and things like that you can watch. But I wanted to give you a little bit different perspective because in teacher circles and professor circles, we like to talk about like the American Revolution versus the French Revolution. Why were they so different, and why is America still on its original constitution? I don't know how for much longer, and the French are already on their like 11th constitution since then. In other words, their government keeps falling apart and ours does not. What happened there? And AI actually kind of nailed it. I know these things to be true, although there's a lot more detail not mentioned here. Okay, so this one says, a chart comparing the French Revolution and the American Revolution would highlight key differences in their causes, goals, leadership, level of violence, and ultimate outcomes. The American Revolution primarily focused on gaining independence from British rule with less radical societal change, while the French Revolution aimed for a complete societal restructuring with much greater violence and upheaval, including the overthrow of the monarch and aristocracy. So America wanted to be out from under the boot heel of the British government. And if you look at the Declaration of Independence, you can see the, 30 something complaints our founding fathers had about the British. Everything from they won't let you practice the religion you want, go to the church you want, they won't let you spread the word of God that they believed, they won't let you get rid of slavery in some places, they won't let you have your own lawmaking body that they had for hundreds of years, they sit soldiers in your house to babysit you and make sure you do what they want and eat all your food. I mean, just taxes like crazy, taxes, more taxes, some more taxes, and then some taxes on top of the taxes, just all kinds of horrible things. So that's just some of the complaints our founders had about the British, okay? So it says for causes for the American Revolution: taxation without representation, British control over the colonies, restrictions on trade, and lack of political autonomy, especially that they had already had. On the French Revolution, it's inequality under the estate system, economic hardship, food shortages, Enlightenment ideals, and absolute monarchy. So the French were still under a king and queen, and they were sick of the rich ruling class being over them. And honestly, they kind of subscribed to some ideas that Karl Marx had, even though this is a little bit before Karl Marx. I'm not going to say they're full-on socialists, but they probably would have really agreed with a lot of Karl Marx's socialist ideas in terms of equality, making everybody more equal. One thing you guys got to remember, America was more about freedom. I mean, we talked about equality, but they meant equality under the law. Like, you don't have this guy that can do anything and get away with it, and then this guy gets thrown in jail for doing what that guy did, and that guy never gets in trouble. They wanted equality under the law. They didn't want equality of outcomes or income or wealth, which is more what the French wanted, which is more of a socialist idea. You cannot have equality and freedom, because if you want to make everybody equal, you have to take from those that have more and give to those that have less, which it might make you feel good and sound great until you're the one being taken from, and it's your family suffering, and it's your country suffering, and it's your business being taken over by the government, because that's how you do those things. So you have to take rights and freedom away from people to make them more equal. You cannot have both freedom and equality in large amounts, okay? You can't, because you're going to have a bigger government to control more things, to make people more equal, which to me sounds horrible, but a lot of people today love that idea. They want to be taken care of, and they want the government to do it and just take over and do everything for me. And that's just a nightmare to a guy like me. But there's a lot of people that root for that, okay? But you can't have both is my point, all right? So goals, the Americans wanted self-governance, establishment of a republic, protection of individual liberties. This is music to my ears. The French Revolution wanted equality, social justice, Interesting. Overthrow of the monarchy and radical societal restructuring. Oh boy. Um, and it's funny because the American founders, while this was going on, actually had big arguments. Thomas Jefferson went to France and actually wanted to help them overthrow the monarchy and set up a new government. And then he saw how it turned to complete violence and they just started chopping off everybody's heads they didn't like. And then he came back home and John Adams told him, I told you there wasn't a snowball chance in heck that would end up being a good revolution with a good government. And they used to fight about that. Anyways, outcome, the formation of the United States as an independent nation, establishment of a constitutional republic that protects your rights, and everything in our Constitution is designed to protect our freedom and rights against the government. In the French Revolution, they had overthrow of the monarchy, establishment of a republic, widespread political instability, and the rise of Napoleon later on as a dictator. So that didn't go well, and chopped off thousands of people's heads. Yeah, so different goals, totally different outcomes, and totally different amounts of stability based on those revolutions. So that's all I was going to cover on that, Sid. There's tons more out there if you're interested. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Really good topics this week, guys. Really controversial. I hope I didn't offend anybody. If I did, I'm sorry, but that happens. You don't have to agree with anything I said, although most of it is factual. um, anyways, so if you guys send me your notes on this video of the whole thing, not parts of it, the whole thing, I'll give you extra credit. Okay, I'll give you 20 points on whatever assignment you want to use it on, anything but your final exam. Okay, and then I'm going to also send you the George Washington video, which will give you another extra credit opportunity. And I was gonna send you guys another one on an economic topic somebody asked for, but I already have a video of it. And I don't remember what it is, but I'll go check on that. Anyways, so you'll get 2 emails separate from this with video lessons and extra credit opportunities if you want to do those. If you don't, that's okay. Remember, feel free to holler at me if you need any help with anything. And keep working hard, guys. We're getting there. It'll be Thanksgiving before you know it. Just keep working, okay? Hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you need anything. And I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, I was going to show you guys something cool, huh? Yeah, I think this is cool. Okay, so let me show you this real quick. All right. This is me. And I just got featured on the SIT Guitar String website as one of their featured artists. I don't know if you guys know, but I play music. I play guitar, and I play in a band. And we just went on tour with an '80s band that was legendary at one time. The singer was his name is Udo Dirkschneider, and he played in the band Accept in the 1980s. And they had a couple big hits and everything, and they were big. And anyways, they're doing okay today, and they asked us to go on tour with them. And I was out for a couple weeks, and that's what I was doing. I was out playing guitar at all these neat cities and stuff. But anyways, this Guitar String website has endorsed me, which means they want me to use all their stuff, and they will advertise me, and in exchange they will bribe me by giving me free equipment and things like that. So they got me on their website along with a lot of other famous guitar players, guys that are way better than me. But anyways, I'm on there. So I just thought that was something like your other teachers can't do. I'm kidding, but I just wanted to show that to you guys and share it with you. But if you go to the sitstrings.com website, you can see Mr. Crane on there as one of their featured artists. And I got my little black and white picture. And it tells you what guitar strings of theirs I like. So anyways, there's that. That's all I got, guys. Let me stop sharing now. So again, let me know if you need anything. Hang in there. We're almost Thanksgiving. You guys take care.